The morning air was still and quiet at Kensington Palace, but something was different inside. A deep silence filled the royal home, the kind that made the walls feel heavy. Prince William sat at the breakfast table, looking across at his wife, Princess Kate. The sunlight was shining through the tall palace windows, lighting up the gold frames and polished furniture, but neither of them noticed it. William stared at his untouched toast. Kate held her teacup with both hands, but her fingers trembled. They were usually full of chatter and laughter in the mornings, talking about their royal plans, the children's school stories, and family matters. But not today. Today, a quiet fear lived between them. Just last night, they had received a phone call that made everything stop. Kate's doctor had asked them to come in urgently the next morning. His voice was calm, but serious. Too serious. Kate had been feeling tired for weeks. At first, she thought it was just from work and travel, but her doctor seemed more worried every time she visited. William had tried to believe it was nothing. He told her she just needed rest, but now, with this sudden call, even he could not ignore it anymore. Something was wrong. Last night, after putting the children to bed, they had sat on the edge of their own bed, staring at the floor. William had reached for Kate's hand. Her face was pale. Her lips were trying to smile, but her eyes were scared. They didn't sleep. They couldn't. Every hour passed slowly, like a clock stuck in place. William kept watching her in the dark, wondering how he would protect her if the worst happened. In the morning, Kate woke first. She walked quietly to the kitchen and made tea for both of them, just like she always did. But today, everything felt like it was made of glass. One wrong word could break it all. William joined her at the window. He stood behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. Together, they looked out at the garden where their children played every day. The flowers looked the same. The grass was still green, and the sky was blue. But inside their hearts, nothing felt normal. They sat down at the breakfast table, but neither touched the food. The newspaper showed photos of their public events, happy smiles, waving hands, elegant dresses. Kate looked at herself in one picture and wondered, could anyone see the truth behind her smile? Suddenly, their children burst into the room. George was talking about football. Charlotte showed a new drawing, and little Louis was busy trying to tie his shoes. Their laughter filled the air like music, and for a moment, William and Kate almost smiled. But Kate's eyes filled with tears again. She blinked quickly and looked down at her plate. William saw it and began asking the children questions to change the subject. After the children left for school, the silence returned. It felt louder than before. Kate lifted her teacup again, but her hands were shaking too much. William reached across and placed his hands over hers. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. They were both thinking the same thing. The time was getting closer. The doctor's words from the phone call echoed in their minds. We need to talk in person. That line kept repeating itself. William stood and walked to the window. He looked outside at the quiet street where photographers often waited. But today it was empty. The world looked normal. But their world was falling apart. Kate joined him at the window and took his hand. Her fingers were cold. He squeezed them gently. They didn't know what the doctor would say, but they knew this moment, this quiet, hand-in-hand moment, was one they would remember forever. The phone rang. It was Thomas, their driver, saying the car was ready. William and Kate looked at each other. They both tried to smile, but their lips barely moved. It was time to go. As they walked toward the door, William reached for her coat and helped her put it on. Kate whispered a quiet, "Thank you." Her voice cracked. William kissed her forehead. They opened the palace door and stepped outside. The sun was shining, but inside their hearts, storm clouds were gathering. They didn't speak. During the ride to the hospital, William held her hand the whole way. Kate stared out the window, her mind running in circles. The city moved on like any other day. People walking, cars passing, shops opening. No one knew what they were going through. No one saw the weight they carried. The hospital building came into view, cold and gray. The car stopped. William got out first and reached back for Kate's hand. She stepped out slowly. Together they walked toward the entrance. Behind that door their lives might change forever. The palace was quiet, but William's heart was loud. 3 days had passed since the doctor's appointment, but the memory stayed fresh in his mind like it had happened just an hour ago. Each night he lay in bed listening to Kate's breathing, watching her sleep. She was resting more now. The doctor had said she needed strength before starting treatment, but rest did not bring peace. Not for William. Not yet. He walked through the long hallways of Kensington Palace. His footsteps echoed around him. He had walked these halls his whole life, but today they felt strange. Empty. The staff moved gently around him, their voices soft, their eyes full of quiet worry. Everyone was thinking about Kate. They didn't ask questions, but their concern hung in the air like a heavy curtain. William passed by Kate's favorite sitting room. She hadn't visited it since they came home from the hospital. It used to be full of laughter, her favorite books, and her notes about charity work. Now it waited in silence. William paused by the door but didn't go in. He wasn't ready to sit in the silence she had left behind. He kept walking until he reached Kate's private study. The door was slightly open. It was a room she used to write thank you letters, organize charity events, and read letters from the public. William had rarely entered it before. It was her space, her world. But something pulled him inside today. Maybe it was the way her perfume still lingered in the air, or maybe it was just the deep ache in his heart. He stepped in quietly, like he was stepping into a sacred place. On her desk were photos of the children, George smiling with paint on his face, Charlotte in her ballet dress, Louis holding a toy knight. There were piles of letters and cards from children around the world. One caught his eye. It was from a young girl named Emily who had cancer. She had drawn a picture of Kate with a crown and wrote, "You are my brave princess. Thank you for visiting me." William held the letter tightly. It shook in his hands. He looked at more letters. So many people had written to Kate. They thanked her for listening, for caring, for being kind. Some were from sick children. Some were from young mothers. Some from people who had lost hope until they saw Kate on the news. And now Kate was the one who needed hope. William sat down at her desk. It felt strange, but comforting. On the desk was her appointment book. He opened it gently. Page after page was filled with her neat handwriting. Hospital visits, school openings, charity meetings, even small notes like, "Bring toys for the children's ward," or "Write letter to mother who lost child." Each page showed her heart. Tears welled in William's eyes. He had always admired Kate for her kindness, but now, sitting here, he saw how much she gave. Quietly, silently, always for others. A knock at the door startled him. It was Thomas, their driver. He stepped in carefully. "Sorry to disturb, sir. Just wanted to check if you or Her Royal Highness needed anything." William shook his head, wiping his eyes quickly. But Thomas didn't leave right away. He stepped forward and said, "Sir, some of the staff have written messages for Her Royal Highness. We've placed them in a basket by the kitchen. Just little words to lift her up." William was speechless. His throat tightened. He nodded slowly, touched by the gesture. After Thomas left, William stayed seated. He reached for a small album on the shelf. Inside were photos from their early marriage, laughing on the beach, holding hands in the rain, dancing at an event when no one was watching. Then photos of Kate holding each of their children for the first time, her face glowing. With joy and love, he whispered almost to himself, "She has always been our strength." Suddenly his phone buzzed. A message from Harry. "How's Kate holding up? I've been thinking about her a lot." William stared at the screen. He didn't know what to say. How do you explain that your wife, your partner, your rock, was now the one who needed help? He typed slowly. "She's resting. We'll talk soon. He looked around the study one more time. Her world of kindness and love was all around him. Every letter, every photo, every note showed the life she had built, not just as a royal, but as a woman who gave her heart to people who needed it most. Now it was their turn to give that heart back to her. William stood and took one last look at the drawing from Emily. "You are my brave princess." He knew in his soul, Kate was still that brave princess. She just needed time to heal, and he would be there, every second, holding her hand through it all. It had been 5 days since the doctor's visit, but for William and Kate, time moved differently now. Every hour felt longer, every quiet moment felt louder, and every smile took more effort than before. Kate was spending most of her time in bed now, as the doctor had advised. Her energy was low and her body ached in strange ways. But the hardest part wasn't the tiredness. It was pretending to be okay when her children came into the room. William stayed close to her. He canceled his meetings, delayed public events, and quietly told his team, "My place is with Kate." Every morning he brought her tea just like she used to bring him. He opened the curtains gently, letting in soft morning light. Kate would smile, weak but grateful. She would whisper, "Thank you," and he would kiss her forehead and say, "Always." But even in those quiet moments, a storm of thoughts lived inside them. The children still didn't know the full truth. George was old enough to notice something was wrong. He had asked, "Why is Mom always resting?" Charlotte had started leaving little drawings at Kate's door, rainbows, smiling suns, and stick figures holding hands. Louis didn't understand much, but he stayed close, always climbing into Kate's lap, laying his head against her chest, whispering, "I love you, Mummy." One afternoon, Kate sat by the window in her room, wrapped in a soft blanket. She watched the clouds roll across the sky. William came in quietly with a folder of letters, notes from the public, kind messages from people who had heard she was unwell. He sat beside her and opened a few. One was from a nurse in Scotland, another from a teenage girl who had once met Kate at a school visit. "You gave me courage," the girl wrote. "Now it's my turn to send some back to you." Kate's eyes filled with tears. She wiped them away quickly. "I didn't think people would care so much," she said softly. William looked at her with love and said, "You've touched more lives than you'll ever know." Later that evening, they decided it was time to talk to the children. They sat in the playroom. Toys were scattered everywhere. Kate sat on the soft carpet, her legs folded under her, and William sat beside her. The children came in, curious. William took a deep breath. His voice shook a little. "Mummy's not feeling very well," he said. "She has to rest a lot, and soon she will go to the hospital sometimes for special medicine." Charlotte's eyes grew wide. "Will she be okay?" she asked. Kate smiled gently. "Yes, sweetheart, but I'll need your help. Some days I'll be tired, and I'll need extra hugs. Can you do that for me?" The children all nodded. George leaned closer. "I can help with Louis," he said proudly. Charlotte hugged her mother tightly. "I'll draw more rainbows." Louis climbed into Kate's lap again and said, "I'll give you my blanket." It wasn't easy, but it was real. Kate felt a weight lift off her heart. The children knew now, and they still smiled. They still loved. That gave her strength. The next day, something unexpected happened. Kate was resting in her room when the door creaked open. William walked in, holding something behind his back. She raised an eyebrow. "What are you hiding?" He smiled shyly and said, "Close your eyes." She did. When she opened them again, he was holding a small photo album. On the cover were the words, "Moments that matter." He sat beside her and opened the first page. It showed a photo of the day they got engaged, Kate laughing under a tree. The next page showed her holding George for the first time. Then Charlotte on her first day of school. Then Louis's birthday party. Each photo had a small note written in William's handwriting. "You were brave here. You gave joy here. You made us whole here. Kate turned the pages slowly, her hands shaking. Each memory hit her like a wave. She smiled, she cried, she laughed softly. William watched her and gently said, "No illness can erase what you've built. These are the things that will stay forever." Kate touched the last page. It was blank. She looked at him. "We'll fill this one together," he whispered. "We're not done, not even close." In that moment, Kate felt something she hadn't felt since the doctor gave them the news. Hope. The illness was real. The fear was strong. But so was their love. So was their family. And deep inside, they both believed. The hardest days might still come, but they would face them hand in hand, with courage, with laughter, and with the unshakable bond that had always kept them close. A cool dawn breeze swept across Kensington Palace, yet inside the royal car the air felt thick and heavy. Kate sat beside William, fingers intertwined, listening to the gentle hum of the engine. Today was the first day of treatment. Outside, London streets glimmered with early morning rain, but every wet stone seemed to gleam with uncertain promise. William glanced at Kate's reflection in the window. She was pale, yes, but in her eyes burned a quiet, unbreakable fire. The car slowed as they neared the hospital. To their surprise, a small crowd stood behind the security ropes. Nurses on break, shopkeepers, students on bicycles, even a bus driver who had parked and joined them. No photographers shouted questions. Instead, people held handmade signs. "Stay strong, princess. Hope is with you. Love wins." Someone began humming a soft tune, and soon many voices blended into a gentle chorus. The simple melody wrapped around Kate like a warm coat. She pressed her hand to the glass and whispered, "Thank you." William's throat tightened. He had no words, only gratitude. Inside the oncology wing, the hall smelled of disinfectant and fresh flowers. Someone, perhaps a thoughtful nurse, had placed lilies, the children's gift, on the reception desk. Kate traced one petal before signing her name. Dr. Morrison met them with a calm smile. "Room 3 is ready," he said. "Later we'll walk through the next steps together." His tone was steady, but kind. It reminded William of a strong river, firm enough to guide, gentle enough to soothe. The treatment room was quiet except for the soft beep of monitors. Kate settled into the recliner, blanket over her legs. William pulled a chair close, so close their knees touched. As the nurse prepared the IV, Kate reached for William's sleeve and whispered, "Let's talk about something happy." He nodded, opened the small photo album, Moments That Matter, and turned to a blank page. He drew a tiny box in the top corner, scribbling the words, "New Beginning." Kate watched the ink flow, feeling each stroke plant a seed of courage in her heart. Minutes stretched into an hour, yet they passed gently. William read her letters from schoolchildren, each one a bright spark. "You can beat this. Princess Kate, be brave like a lion." Kate smiled at every line, letting their hope patch the holes fear had torn open. When the drip finally clicked off, Kate exhaled a shaky breath, part relief, part exhaustion. The nurse removed the line and placed a small bandage over her arm. William whispered, "First step done." Kate answered, "First page filled." Back in the car, rain had stopped. Sunlight broke through clouds, painting slices of gold upon wet pavements. But something else awaited them. In the palace courtyard, staff lined both sides of the drive. Chefs in white coats, gardeners still holding pruners, maids with polished shoes, even solemn guards in shining helmets. They held baskets of tiny paper cranes folded from blue-ribboned notes William had found days earlier. As the car rolled past, they released them into the air. Hundreds of cranes fluttered upward, spinning like hope caught on the wind. Kate watched through watery eyes. Each crane felt like a whispered promise. Healing is coming. Thomas parked, and William helped Kate out carefully. She was tired, but she wanted to walk. Together they followed a narrow path to the back garden, where a new tree now stood, a young cherry blossom, its branches tied with more blue ribbons. At its base lay a handwritten sign, planted 5 July, for Mum, from G. C. L. George, Charlotte, and Louis burst from behind a hedge shouting, "Surprise!" Their nanny and Maria smiled in the distance. Charlotte lifted a picnic basket. We made lunch. Louis held a thermos almost as tall as his arm. "Hot chocolate," he announced proudly. George unfolded a blanket, smoothing every corner with practiced care. Kate laughed, a sound so light William felt the garden itself exhale. They sat beneath the young tree. Petals, shaken loose by wind, drifted down like soft pink snowflakes. George poured drinks while Charlotte handed cakes. Louis crawled into Kate's lap, laying his head against her heart as though guarding it. Kate closed her eyes and simply breathed, breathing in the scent of blossoms, children's laughter, William's steady presence, and the quiet rustle of cranes still caught in higher branches. After lunch, William produced a small silver pen. He opened the album to the blank page titled New Beginning. Slowly, carefully, he wrote today's date. Then he passed the pen to Kate. Her hand shook, but she wrote one word beneath, the date. Together. Charlotte added a rainbow sticker. George drew a tiny football. Louis dotted a lopsided heart. The simple page now gleamed like treasure. Evening shadows grew long. The children chased each other across grass still wet from rain. Kate rested against William's shoulder. "Do you remember," she said quietly, "the day you promised to hold my hand through every storm?" William kissed her hair. "I remember every promise," he answered, "and every storm has led us here where love feels stronger than the wind." Kate watched the cherry tree swaying, ribbons fluttering, petals tumbling in slow circles. A calm settled over her, not the false calm of pretending, but the brave calm of accepting help, choosing hope, and believing in tomorrow. She turned to William. "Let's keep planting pages," she said. "Let's fill the whole album." William smiled, eyes shining. "We will," he whispered, "one sunrise at a time." Nightfall crept in, cool and gentle. Thomas guided the children inside for baths and bedtime stories. William stood, then helped Kate rise. Her legs trembled, but she stayed steady, leaning on him, on love. They walked back toward the palace, leaving footprints in dewy grass, leaving the young cherry blossom to guard the garden through the night. Behind them, a breeze lifted another shower of petals, carrying them over darkening lawns, toward glittering palace windows, toward quiet streets still holding echoes of morning songs, toward every heart that had wished them strength. And in that soft rustling hush it was clear. The road ahead remained long, yet every step would be taken side by side. William and Kate, hands clasped, eyes forward, hope blooming like 1,000 paper cranes in flight.